Now, a lot of us miss an opportunity here in the fall to grow quite a bit of food. The reason a lot of us miss this opportunity is because we just get busy. We get busy with the summer harvest, managing that before it goes bad. Kids are starting to go back to school right now. Just a lot of stuff is going on all at the same doggone time. So a lot of us miss this opportunity, and they forget to plan the fall garden. They're not quite sure what you can get away with in a fall garden. And today we're going to be demystifying that. Basically, we're going to make this absolutely effortless. Now, before we get into that, remember, I'll be at the Back to the Land Festival here up in Tennessee. It's going to be linked down below, as well as the Kentucky Sustainable Living Festival. Also, if you need a consultation, hit up the email down below and I'll be glad to come out to your homestead and give you guys a plan. Now, with that being said, let's get started with this video. Now here, let me give you guys an overview of what I have going on in the garden right now. This right here is an electroculture test bed. It's where I'm growing potatoes, as well as this bed right here. This is electroculture potatoes. This is just regular potatoes. Both of them had really, really good compost added to the trench where I planted the tomatoes. Not tomatoes, potatoes, you know what I'm saying. Tomatoes, potatoes, whatever. This bed right here, I strung up this string the other day in preparation for the fall garden, and then I realized, oh, this might make a good video. So I stopped where I was, ended up just finishing clearing most of the garden. And that's where this one is. So this one is open for planting. This one is a perennial garden. So I have a couple fruit trees up here in the middle. If you see those blue tarps over there, that's my compost making facility over there. That over there is the neighbor's yard. Don't worry about that stuff. This is where we're focusing. This is a perennial bed. This one right here is where I have some peppers overwintering, as well as a moringa tree down in the middle. This one we can plant in limited spacing. This one is just an overgrown bed that I'm gonna have to clear here soon. And then this one is a bed where I have peppers overwintering again. And this is another perennial bed. So right now I basically have this bed, which is about 40 feet long and about 4 feet wide. I have this bed available. And I have parts of this bed available. And now you can see some of the cardboard here. That was a demonstration of making an instant garden. And I'm going to be, in the future, adding more mulch to this because right now the cardboard is exposed and that's not necessarily what you want. I did add some mulch to it, but to be honest, some of it blew away because we had high winds before the rain came in. Now, the garden is in the in-between stage. After the summer harvest, before the fall production and stuff. Had I done a little bit better planning, I might have kind of overlapped both things, but I've been on the road doing consultations and festivals and stuff like that. So, today we're gonna remediate that. Alrighty, so the first thing we're gonna do is find out our average first frost date, and we're gonna count back from there. So my average first frost date is about November 1st, around there. That's for East Texas. For some of you guys, your first frost date is gonna be like tomorrow night, and that you might be a little bit too late for a fall garden for you guys. So that gives me about a month and a half of production before we start dealing with frost. And that doesn't mean we have to stop growing during our first frost date. That just means at that point, we might want to start thinking about season extenders, such as like cold frames or running like growing fabric above our crops whenever, you know, it hits those nighttime temperatures that are below freezing, stuff like that. So just keep that in mind. Just because you have your first frost date doesn't mean that's when you have to stop growing. You can grow past that, but you might want to get started sooner than later. Now, knowing that kind of gives me an idea of how much time I have to get a production in before we start dealing with frost. Now, after that, I'm going to go to my handy dandy black mirror that we all keep in our pockets, and I'm going to go to the app Gardenate. Now, I don't get paid by this app at all, but whenever I was at Jeff Lawton's farm, he made it very, like I was studying under Jeff Lawton, he made it very clear to a lot of us that, hey, if you're serious about producing food, then you might want to download this app, especially for beginners. And this app is called Gardenate. I'm going to go ahead and hit screen record on my phone so you guys can see what I'm dealing with right here, or so you can see exactly what I'm doing. There we go. It's recording, and now I'm over in the calendar section all the way to the left. And up at the top, you can see planting calendar. It says September, October, November. Right now it's on October, but let me go back to September. And it gives you a list of everything that you can plant right now. And it tells you exactly how to plant it right now. So up at the top, it says plant out as seedlings, which would be chives. So if I already had chives growing, I could plant them out as seedlings and get a pretty good harvest. Also, I should say that this app is it's tailored to your area. Now it might be off just a little bit because it doesn't take into consideration like your immediate microclimate or anything like that, but it gives you a very, very good starting place. So up at the top it says plant out seedlings for the chives, and then below that it gives you an option for sow seed and garden, and it gives you beetroot, broad beans, cabbage, carrots, chicory, chives, collards, daikon radishes, horseradish, kohlrabi, leeks, lettuce, mustard greens, onion, radish, rocket, silver beet, snow peas, spinach, strawberry plants, and turnips. Now this is not a complete list of what you can get started, but it gives you a very, very good starting place as to what you can and can't plant. Now you might have things that are similar to some of these varieties, but it might not just say that variety in particular. Also, keep in mind that this app is from, I believe, Australia. So some of the terms for these things are going to be slightly different than what we call them here in America, but I think once you click on the image, you'll have a good understanding. Next, so I go through this list and I kind of decide what I want to plant out of this list. So if I click on beetroot like this, it gives you a full calendar, like a full year calendar of basically when to do what. So if I were to start planting in January, then I would need to start them in seed trays first. Anything past that, I can either transplant the seedlings or sow directly into the garden. And it gives you helpful information, like germinates in 4 to 5 days at soil temperatures between 44 and 77 degrees. Sow directly in the garden. It gives you the spacing. It gives you how long it takes to harvest. Now remember, I said the first frost date is going to be about November 1st. So that gives me a month and a half of growing, which is going to give me about 6 weeks before we start battling the frost. The harvest on these beetroots is going to be 7 to 10 weeks. So I know that my beetroots are going to be pretty well established before we start getting into that frost date, and it's going to be more resilient to frost and easier for me to protect from frost. Let's go to another. Oh, and then another thing about this app that's really cool is that if you're into companion planting, then it shows you exactly what these are compatible with and what to avoid growing it with. For example, onions, silver beet, lettuce, cabbage, dwarf beans, dill, peas, strawberries, those are all compatible with beets. You should avoid growing them with asparagus, carrots, sweet corn, spinach. And if you're doing a rotation system, this tells you exactly what to plant either ahead of time, like before the beetroots, or after the beetroots, and it gives you some pretty interesting culinary uses. And then in between those yellow sections, gives you some helpful tips about how to, best grow your beets, some helpful tips just regarding that. Okay, so another cool thing about this app is that let's say I do pick beetroot in this garden. I can go over to my garden, and then I can hit plant something and I can fill out the entire information. I can fill out like what I planted, the variety of it, like the specific cultivar of it, how I planted it, what day I planted it on, and which raised bed or row that I planted it in. And it'll give you a reminder of when it's about time to harvest. Also, you can keep track of what cultivars did well and what cultivars didn't do well. So I know a lot of us will plant like a variety of, let's just stick to beetroots for example, we'll plant a variety of beetroots and we don't really remember which varieties did best in our soil. This app will help fix that. This app, like once you harvest, you can give the notes on how much of each you harvested and how much you planted of each. So that way you can get a better understanding of what varieties did better in your area and which ones didn't do better in your area. So with that said, let's go ahead and get started planting. Oh, I should also say that this shirt, the festival I'm going to at the end of October, this shirt actually came from one of the creators of the Kentucky Sustainable Living. It's the, well, if you read the back of it, I think you get a pretty good understanding of what this shirt is about. But those are the types of people that we'll be hanging out with at these festivals, and I can't wait to see you guys there. All right, so after going through the app, I've kind of decided what I want to plant, and a lot of these are going to be beets, and then also turnips. I'm going to be doing a lot of beets, turnips, and radishes. One of them is going to be the tall top early wonder and the Detroit dark red beets, these guys right here. We got a lot of those tall tops. Also these turnips, they're going to be the purple top white globe turnips. We're going to give those a shot. And then also some radishes. The white icicle, I can show you guys right here. The white icicle ones, we're going to give 2 packs of those a shot. And we're going to give 2 packs of those turnips a shot. We're also going to do some French breakfast radishes. Also, we're going to be doing some leeks. I love leeks. I don't really eat them that often for some reason, but I love, well, Right now I'm doing that carnivore diet on the 75 hard, so that's a good example, or a good reason not to be. But we're also going to be doing spinach, and I had some leftover cowpea, so we're going to use this as a semi-ground cover because it is still warm here. Like today's 80 degrees, and this is like typical fall weather for Texas, believe it or not. But we're going to be doing a lot of beets, a lot of turnips, a lot of radishes, stuff like that. Also stuff that's going to, and also spinach, I said that earlier, but you could also do a lot of lettuces. We don't eat a whole lot of salads. Like I said, I'm on that carnivore diet right now. And these are things that I want to be able to put back so we can eat them after I'm done with the 75 hard, so we can eat them like through the winter, and then stuff that I can also feed my pigs over there. Some shelf stable root crops or crops that are easily put back. The spinach, that's obviously the outlier in that. The spinach, I just love spinach. So as soon as I'm done with the 75 hard, I'm gonna be eating a ton of spinach just because I love spinach. Also, I have a 10-month-old baby. So some of these crops will be good to give to her as well. Let's go ahead and start with this bed and get that planted. And I'll kind of show you the thought process that I have while planting, because you can kind of employ the 7 layers of a forest. Same exact thing you can kind of employ in your garden right here. So let's get started planting. Alrighty, so before we start planting, what I'm gonna do is start applying a thin layer of this very, very well-made, highly beneficial compost in a row, or in the row where I'm going to be planting, basically. Don't buy compost, it's all garbage. I've tested it before. I've tested a bunch of different bags of compost and stuff like that. It's all, for the large part, garbage. It's all just plain organic matter with no soil biology in it, other than maybe a nematode extract plant or inoculating the pile right before bagging. Which nematodes are just one I mean, they play a big role, but they're just one aspect of the soil life in your garden. So check out one of the other videos that I've done talking about how to make compost, how to make proper compost and stuff like that. And that should help out quite a bit. But I'm in the remediation phase of this garden right now. If you don't know, this property was abandoned for about 4 or 5 years, and now I'm in the process of bringing it back to life, basically. So the garden soil isn't exactly where I want it to be just yet. It will be a lot better by this time next year, or even earlier than that, this next spring. But part of what this fall garden is doing is re-inoculating these beds with proper soil life, decompacting any compaction issues that there were, and stuff like that. So compost is going to go a long way in making that possible. Also, compost will bring out the conditions that will stop weed seeds from growing. It'll also stop this Bermuda grass from taking over, because once I start increasing the fungi in the soil, then it'll be inhospitable to Bermuda grass, because Bermuda grass loves high bacteria situations. It does not like fungi in the soil, for example. Now, what I'm going to be planting in this bed right here, or in this row right here, this first one, are the beets. Now, whenever I said earlier that I'm going to be applying the ethics, this pole's in the way, sorry about that. Now, when I said earlier that I'm going to be applying the 7 layers of a forest idea to this bed, it's not going to be all 7 layers, but it gives me an understanding of like occupying the different layers in a forest in this bed. So instead of just having a bed full of beets and then calling it good, what I'm going to do is have a bed full of beets right here, this row full of beets, which is going to take care of the root layer of a forest. And then in the middle, what I'm going to have is a row of basically leeks, but also spinach. And that's going to enable me to occupy this area right here. So it's going to be the shrub herbaceous layer, or in this exact scenario, it's going to be the overstory, basically. So I have beets right here. I'm going to have spinach and leeks like back and forth through here. And then on this side, I'm going to have turnips. So that way I know that the turnips aren't going to be outshading anything over on this side. The spinach is in the middle. It's occupying a different space in this area. So it's not going to be in competition with the turnips or the beets. And keep in mind that there isn't a competition for nutrients. There's only competition for sun and water. So The spinach is going to go through the middle. That's occupying the space up here. The roots, or the root vegetables, basically the beets and the turnips, are going to go on either side of that. So if I did turnips right next to the beets, I might have to space it out a little bit more, so that way the turnips and the beets aren't like pushing up against each other. But since the spinach is growing up above the soil and my root crops are going down below the soil with minimal stuff above the soil, it enables me to get a lot more food planted closer together because they're occupying different spaces. So yeah, just keep that in mind. This first row is going to be a row of beets, and then if I run out of beet seeds, then I'll transition over to not turnips, but radishes. Radishes are, I prefer turnips and beets over radishes. So radishes are basically just gonna fill in the gaps if I run out of seeds of anything else. Alrighty, so that's basically it. Instead of doing the leeks in the middle, I just did the spinach by itself. Now I'm watering it with this compost tea. Just walking up and down and make sure everything is nice and saturated. But that's basically it. Hopefully that demystified everything for you, made planning your fall garden a lot easier. I know a lot of people do like graphs and charts and stuff like that. It ain't gotta be that complicated, especially with like current technology. And I know a lot of people have a reservation on using this technology and stuff like that, but why not use it and learn while you can from it, as opposed to just completely rejecting it itself? Like, you can use this to learn from it, get an understanding of what you can and can't do going into different seasons, and then after you've learned, then you can just reject the information, because it's also going to be like, it's going to give you a good starting space. Like, it's not going to be exact on when you can plant what and what you can't plant and like the exact dates and stuff like that, but it's going to give you a good understanding of where to start. Like this year, I might find out at the end of this fall season that, hey, maybe I should have started my fall garden just a little bit sooner than what the app said, like maybe a week or 2 weeks, a little bit sooner. But yeah, that's just it. So now that this bed is completely planted, I've got beets on one side, I've got turnips on another side, and then I have spinach in the middle. I didn't end up doing the leeks in the middle, just because I had less seeds of that than I thought I did. Like in the pack, there's only like 15 seeds. So I didn't want to put them in between the spinach and then forget that I put the leeks there, even though I recorded it in my Gardener app. Don't forget to fill out the information on the Gardener app, so that way you don't forget what's in there. So I'm gonna need to clear a couple of these other beds before I can start planting anything else, because I got 2 beds of potatoes over on this one side. Those are my electroculture test beds. And then I've got, well, I've got 2 beds left that I could probably get some more annual production out of this fall. So I'll go ahead and clear those out later and get those planted as well. Like I said before, if you want to go to a festival or you need a consultation, just hit up the links down below. And until next time, we'll see you.